Tim, thank you so much for joining me on The Crop. It's so lovely to have you. Do you want to start by maybe just giving a quick introduction to who you are and the role you do at ITN?
I'm a senior producer at ITV News on the long-form team. The way I describe us, we're like a little moon that sort of orbits the planet of the newsroom. We're a sort of small team. We make lots of documentaries and programs, and whether it's fast turnaround news events or long, exposure style investigations. We also do lots of royal films and just general kind of big interviews we do for the newsroom.
I've seen obviously a lot of your work, and we've talked in brief about some of the kind of factual documentaries and things you've done. What was it that first got you into factual storytelling, do you think?
To go big picture, storytelling more broadly, I kind of always, from a young age, writing, all that sort of thing, really into that. And I think it was from just being drawn to programs that when I was growing up, there was quite a lot of sort of really hard-hitting, compelling, factual journalistic programs, and they're just great telly. And I remember Kenyon Confronts, Donal McIntyre, there were all these, or slightly magazine-y maybe at the time, but just brilliant stuff. And that kind of got me definitely interested. But I just remember Kenyon Confronts in particular, and it's quite a niche program, but I just remember loving that and thinking, oh, I'd love to do programs like this. It was a chap called Paul Kenyon. He's a BAFTA award-winning journalist, and he's done lots of stuff in Ukraine and things like that, and very respected. But one of the things they used to do was identify a kind of scam and basically track the villain down and sort of present a dossier of information to them at the end of wrongdoing. But it was always done in quite an electric, dramatic fashion at the end. And I remember, and some of the incidents were quite sort of comical, but great. I mean, one of them was they did bogus weddings, and they turned up at a bogus wedding, and two people were at the front. And just at that moment where the priest turns to the audience and goes, "Does anybody know why these two shouldn't get married?" Paul Kenyon goes, I do. Yep. You two don't know each other, do you? In fact, this whole thing's not real. And at that point, the whole room clears. All these people that have been there to sort of help the process would just disappear. It was chaos. I just thought that's hilarious, but also kind of the journalism leading up to that point, the investigation they'd done was amazing. University, I got into writing and doing kind of radio stuff at university, and it was a lot of sports reporting and that kind of thing. Sometimes on my own rugby games, which is arguably self-promotion and PR rather than journalism, but it was great, and kind of I just went to do masters after that. I thought, this is for me.
And so for you, having been influenced by shows like that, and obviously your journey today, what do you think it is that makes really good factual storytelling?
Authenticity in the stories, and having an emotional core with the story you're telling, and presenting and finding the most real human stories possible and delivering that to the audience connects way more than I find than than other sort of elements of television.
Yeah.
And to give you an example, I did Surviving Squalor, Britain's housing shame, and it was a hour-long documentary off the back of some incredible news reports by our newsroom investigations team, and Dan Hewitt, who's a brilliant reporter. But at that core was, unbelievably raw and uncompromising stories, looking at terrible social housing conditions and featuring incredibly brave people talking about, what they were surviving. And I think there's nothing sort of more powerful than that authenticity of seeing someone's experience. But also not just seeing it, we had the idea of using iDirect interviews, so they talk to camera and deliver their real lived experiences direct to the viewer.
You must be so proud of that, because actually you're telling these really powerful stories, but you're actually making a real tangible difference as well.
Yeah, and I should really credit the sort of Dan and the investigations team, obviously, for sort of their first initial news reports that kind of got to the heart of it, and we then built on that with more stories. But they've done like a podcast as well that's amazing, and lots of things. So, yeah.
And speaking of authenticity, I think it would be silly for us not to mention the rise of AI, particularly in terms of like video content, and what that means, what the impact is for factual storytelling and for news, I guess, in particular. How do you navigate this just huge tsunami of fake content seemingly that's out there, and how has it changed your workflows in terms of how you approach storytelling?
Well, I mean, I think AI, obviously, it's developing at a rate of notches that is, nobody's properly comprehended yet. But I will say ITN are really getting on it. I mean, when ChatGPT launched, ITN immediately issued guidelines of ethical use of AI in terms of being careful, editorial integrity, being responsible, not, just always having humans and the judgment in the AI process. We've done this thing recently where the companies put lots of us on a course. I think it's really interesting. It's really what tangible things can be put in place in your working lives that using AI to make your job better, and with all the parameters of ethics and rules and that sort of stuff as well. And it's really interesting. I can already see kind of tangible differences that could make our work more productive, more efficient, and allow us to be the creative producers and journalists we want to be. So that's kind of in place. That's 6 hours a week of my working hours.
Wow, 6 hours, that's huge. So obviously it's been taken very seriously then, because that is actually quite a considerable amount of time. So do you think then actually you will find that you'll be kind of positively embedding AI workflows in the work that you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, the big sentences, and I am skeptical, but the big sentences, AI is not going to replace humans, but the humans who can use AI will replace those that can't. And that is, without a doubt, I think that's true. But also the sheer speed of which AI is developing makes me worry about kind of, are the swathes of people whose jobs will get replaced by AI? Will they be able to adapt as quick enough? That's the problem, isn't it? I think in television, there's always a need for the human judgment along the chain.
I totally agree. And I guess the human element is what makes news, right? It's coming back to those human emotions first. I think it's fair to say that content's probably also changed, or how content's consumed is also changing really fast. But I've seen that ITN are also very active across other platforms other than just traditional television. So, for example, on TikTok, are you able to share a little bit more about the reasons why and the strategy, and whether that's working for you as well?
I think it is. ITN has massively adapted in the last few years. It's been a real concerted push. I mean, lots of the journalists in the newsrooms now, they're multimedia, multi-platform content delivering producers, as well as traditional journalists. And ITV has really gone for TikTok in particular. And I think we've got more than 4 billion views last year. And I think we are the most influential UK news provider on TikTok. That was in a report last year. So really gone for that. And the politics team in particular are amazing at their TikTok output. And it's obviously key because I don't know about you, but I consume YouTube on a ridiculous level, to be honest with you. And I watched the ITV News bulletins, of course. I watch linear TV, but it's just YouTube is with you all of the time, and so likewise TikTok and that sort of thing. So you have to be putting your journalism out on a multi-platform level, and especially without getting too profound and deep, but the existential crisis in TV and what we're all facing in terms of viewing numbers and advertising. Not that the bulletin or viewing figures have dramatically sort of changed, but the younger generations coming through are, without a doubt, the social medias, they're absorbing it all the time, and that's how they're consuming their content. So we need to be on there.
I think it's a particular challenge, I guess, for factual content within news, because how do what techniques do you employ to make sure that you are making people stop and keep watching? Both, I guess you've still got to make content that feels like it's ITN and can go out on traditional channels, but then obviously be repurposed. So is there any particular, I wonder if you can give us any like juicy insider tips on like any particular tips and tricks that you might use for kind of keeping people watching on socials?
I think for me, it's always like under 60 seconds, quick, hard-hitting sound bites that just deliver the most profound points of an interview or a news story that you've just done. I talked about authenticity before, and I still think that sort of cuts through on multi-platform. When you're delivering content, no matter how you package it, if what you've got is not sort of authentic and powerful, then you can add all of the wipes and the cut-ins and the crops and the whatever you like. What you're delivering is not any good. It's not going to get traction. And for Nicola Sturgeon's interview that we did earlier this year, which I was one of the exec producers on, there was just so many news lines that came out of it. Interesting things she had to say about mistakes during her career, the transgender debate and sexuality and all these sort of things. It was just endless, the sort of incredible sound bites. And what we decided to do was, have a rhythm of released clips over a few days so that we didn't overwhelm people with how many kind of sound bites were out there. And what it meant, we had fantastic traction leading up to the transmission point. So we got great viewing figures on, for the program itself, huge numbers, I think 7 million across TikTok and that sort of thing.
In today's society, has it become harder to be a journalist? Do you think it's more difficult to get to the truth sometimes? I guess that can be a question that links to things like political environments, the rise of AI, but just generally, is it harder to get to a good story for a journalist?
Yeah, I think I'm inclined to say yes there, just because of the way the sort of the massive way of the social media has just changed the game, and people's skepticism and people's relationship with the truth, and some of that's come from politics just being absolutely bonkers. Some of that's come from the media landscape just being in a flux, and I think that is a battle. AI, a massive battle. How do you navigate that? I think it is trickier. I think, and sometimes getting the answers from people that you want, maybe there are more places to hide nowadays, and people can refuse to do certain sort of interviews or appearances.
Do you think the platforms for factual storytelling are going to move away even more so from the traditional TV format? Do you see, for example, ITN putting an even bigger investment into the work they do across social and those sorts of areas?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, ITN's already doing that. There, lots of documentaries that are done just for social. It's something that absolutely that we're embracing. I think, in essence, I guess what's going to happen is that factual storytelling will remain the same. It's just the way it's packaged and delivered across multi-platforms, and you're always going to need a good story that's authentic, that's got an emotional core, that's got compelling visuals, that works well. However it's packaged, we've just got to be adaptable and evolve in the way it is put out there. And ITV News, they're doing that. Very conscious of that, and podcasting has got a huge role to play now. The way people want to sort of talk about an issue is totally different, isn't it? I'm always fascinated. I know they're stunts, but those Jubilee interviews where they have like 20 people in a circle and someone challenging in the middle, and just get ridiculous views. I'm not entirely sure sort of how informative they are sometimes, but it certainly gets people thinking about politics, about social issues, and engaging.
It's a good insight. I think. I guess the thing with news is it's an industry which is just famed for moving fast. You've got to go with the flows, haven't you? So I'm sure whatever happens, it will be just a case of adapting, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so.
Right, to end, I've just got a couple of bonus quick-fire questions for you, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Number one, I like this one. Is there a documentary series you wish you'd made?
I think there's plenty. I mean, I always think of Navalny and kind of that documentary just being an unbelievable work, because it's obviously sort of one of the first documentaries that really just saw behind the veil of the Russian state, and that phone call in the middle of it. If you've not seen it, it's mind blowing. The phone call that Navalny makes in the middle of it is just incredible. So I mean, something like that is truly kind of shocking for the entire planet is always your dream. You want to get to a story like that. But I think just in terms of, I've got plenty of documentaries I love, but the one called Dear Zachary, A Letter to a Son, about his father was an amazing film I saw a long time ago. It's a video letter to a son telling him what his father was like, and it's done through wonderful family footage and home videos and interviews with the family, and so an emotional testimony from friends, and just saying to this boy Zachary, this is what your father was like. And there's an arc to the story and shocking revelations as you go along, and you hear it through these stories and these people talking about Zachary's father. No budget, there's no production values in it. It's just an incredible story, and you're authentically, obviously, seeing someone's story here.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely check that. It sounds absolutely fascinating, and it's nice when people approach that storytelling in a different way like that. It sounds wonderful. What advice would you give to aspiring filmmakers who want to break into the factual storytelling arena?
I think if there's an issue you're interested in or a story you're interested in, finding that emotional truth at the heart of the story, and don't be afraid to let that lead the narrative of your film. Whether that's an individual story who perhaps is, I don't know, struggling with their health journey, letting that be the center of your film.
Tim, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It's been such a pleasure chatting with you. I really can't wait for everyone to see this episode.
Thank you very much for having me. It was great.